For further discussion about the pros and cons of a 4-day work week, I'm joined by Alex Soojung-Kim Pang. He's the Global Programs and Development Manager for the group 4-day week, I'm sorry. Let's try it again. 4-day week global. That one really threw me a curve. Sorry. Alex, I appreciate you joining us. Thanks very much.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Once I got the name out. Now, in a thumbnail sketch, tell me why you are so convinced that a 4-day work week is the way to go.
Well, I've been studying companies around the world in a variety of industries who've been doing this, right? Everyone from Michelin-starred restaurants to software startups to like pest control companies and nursing homes. And what we find is that sort of all over the world, companies are able to reduce working hours without cutting salaries and without reducing expectations around productivity or profitability. And so, and all of this leads me to think that, particularly now, as we come out of the pandemic, that the 4-day week is something that's viable. It's good for workers. It's good for good for companies, and it seems to be good for economies and communities as well.
Now, we had a couple of really good stories leading up to you, and a couple of things that really kind of jumped out at me. One, the coordination for global business companies, and secondly, engaging companies. Now, you have to convince corporations, companies, that their bottom line is going to benefit. What has reaction been so far? I'm sure you're running into some companies who maintain it just is not cost effective. How do you counter that?
I think the good news for the movement is that several years ago, when I started studying this, the whole idea of the 4-day week was like, something that had come from Mars. Completely crazy. Now, on the other hand, when companies plan to move to a 4-day week, they put out press releases. They talk about it, on LinkedIn. So within the business world, there's been this shift to seeing it as a potential source of competitive advantage, as demonstration of your professionalism and how you care about your workers. And so really, at this stage, what we're arguing about is logistics, and kind of strategic feasibility. Right? It can work in Scandinavia, it can work in New Zealand, but can it work in my company? And so if you can get bosses and boards to see that, then I think you're 90% of the way to getting approval for at least a trial, if not permanent adoption of a 4-day week.
Now, Alex, while you were talking, we had some video playing about people on Zoom calls, something we've all come to embrace over the past couple of years. How did the pandemic strengthen your hand?
It threw, I think, first of all, a harsh light on economic inequality and kind of the need for big structural changes to solve enduring problems and things like living wage and gender imbalances. I think it also prompted us to ask bigger questions about the role that work plays in our lives, right? Whether we should treat it as, a kind of source of ultimate meaning. But it also, on the positive side, showed that we can actually change how we work much more quickly and profoundly than we ever thought possible. And that, I think, raises the question of what do we do with that freedom, right? Where do we want to take work? And do we want to go back to 2020? Or, do we want to experiment with things like flexible work and the 4-day week?
Now, we all know about the Great Resignation. We've read about it, heard about it, and employees seem to be holding most of the cards when it comes to the employment sector right now. Will that continue, and how does it play into your argument?
So, as Yogi Berra said, prediction is hard, especially about the future. But, I think that certainly this does not seem to be just, a temporary blip in labor markets. There really is something quite profound going on in people searching for better ways of working and for more meaningful work. I think we've recognized that workers are kind of rediscovering their power collectively, and that's going to be a really hard genie to put back in the bottle. And I think we're going to see, in the next few years, a lot of experiments between individuals, employees, companies are trying to figure out collectively how to make work something that is better for everybody. And I think we'll be seeing, the 4-day week and flexible and hybrid work as a very big component of those experiments.
Tech companies have shown they are willing to think outside the box. But what about other companies, other parts of the country? Any regions do you think they're indicating, what, maybe this will work?
The good news is I am seeing 4-day week companies everywhere, right? sort of Utah, Colorado, Wisconsin, the South. It's not just Silicon Valley companies that are doing it. And in fact, here in Silicon Valley, we still worship the idea of the 80-hour week and, the committed founder. And so, I think that that this is, this is a movement now that really has escaped any particular industry or any particular region, right? Korea and Japan are two of the countries where we've seen the biggest experimentation in 4-day weeks, and those are both countries whose languages have had to invent their own words for working yourself to death. So I think that's, that's an indicator of how much it's spread.